Thanks. I should have also said that we give blessings for all that you are about to give and that we, the club, are about to receive. Now, bearing in mind that we have a general election coming up, I thought that we could have a focus upon reviving our memories of what a blessing it is to have a general election. And you'll see that I'm wearing my special tie today, which marks me out as completely non-partisan. If you can identify any particular party from that, you're doing well. So on your tables, you'll see a list, and so I'll rely upon your honesty.
McGillicuddy's silly party.
Yes, the McGillicuddy, yes. So on your tables, you'll have a list, and I will rely upon the honesty of you all as we go through, but you can call out what you think of the answers. And what year were New Zealand women, or women in New Zealand, granted the vote? Excellent, well done. And as a matter of trivia, there were two voting days that year. One was at the end of November for the European electorates, and one was at the end of December for the Maori electorates. So all men and women, being British subjects and over the age of 21, were entitled to vote in 1893. But what other requirement was there that they had to have in order to vote? Property ownership. Right. They had to have either £5 or, if a householder, £10. Later on it was increased to £50. So 75% of the electorate turned out to vote in 1893. This was the first election that women could participate in. So 73% was the average. Were women more or less than that average? After fighting all these years, yes, you'd certainly expect that to be the case. And it was 65%, so less, but they added to the general gaiety of the occasion. According to a Christchurch newspaper, the streets resembled a gay garden party. The pretty dresses of the ladies and their smiling faces lighted up the polling booths most wonderfully, and we're all grateful for that. When did women gain the right to stand for Parliament? Of those dates you've got. Ooh. Well done, 1919. Well done, everybody else. You're supposed to be putting some money in the plates, folks. And when was the first woman elected to Parliament? Any idea? Yes, Jane, 1933. Absolutely, and that was Elizabeth McCoons from Littleton. Oh, well done. Oh, you were probably at school together, were you? So men were allowed to vote, women were allowed to vote, but the last group that were not allowed to vote until 1922 in New Zealand were... No, these are New Zealanders, and no. The last people, the last New Zealanders allowed to vote were the people of the Chatham Islands. They were not allowed to vote until 1922, when they were incorporated into the seat of Littleton, or Western Maori, and today, of course, they're in the seat of Rongotai. The New Zealand Constitution was passed in 1852. When was our first general election? No? I don't think many of you were there at the time. 1853 we had our first general election. When were the Maori seats established? You've got the list in front of you? Yeah, that's right. Somebody said 1867, that's correct. And that's 12 years before all European males were eligible to vote. Now, the franchise was initially for male British subjects, but fearing discontent and riots and public disorder, the government extended the franchise to... Who do you think they extended the franchise to? Gold miners? Who wants to put your hands up? Gold miners? Māori, lodges, women fearing discontent and public disorder. Well, actually, gold miners were given the vote over and above everybody else in 1860, and by 1870 they were almost a third of all registered voters in the country. Māori got the vote in 1867. Lodges were given a special vote in 1875. That's all those young tradesmen and boarders living in city lodging houses. And then finally women were given the vote. So when was the voting age reduced from 21 to age of 20? Any idea? 69, 72, 73? 69. Right, well done. 69, age 20, and then in 1974 down to age 18. And when did we vote to introduce MMP? Yes, 1993 voted to introduce MMP, but the Royal Commission reported in 1986, and it took 10 years between the Royal Commission and the first MMP election. So we don't do things in a rush around here. Well, thank you for your participation, and hopefully you'll all turn out to vote. Question 8, why were the Māori seats introduced? To encourage voting by tangata whenua? Discourage general seats? Yes, it was B. In fact, if Māori seats were introduced on the same proportion as European seats, Māori were entitled to 15 seats rather than the 4 that they were given and which lasted through until more recent times. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Anthony.
Well, this year was year 6, and in fact it's almost exactly 7 years ago today that Hadley Frost came to a meeting of this club and spoke to us about his passion for physics, and was listened to by, among others, Sir Paul Callaghan. And at a meeting after that club luncheon, we decided to establish the Eureka program. So it's quite a significant time. We had 12 fantastic young secondary school students and undergraduate students deliver a range of interesting presentations which were consistent with the issues of science of today. I'm going to fire through some slides. I mean, so there was a significant involvement by members of the club. Lee Wilkinson was a fantastic MC, and Peter was involved both as a speaker at the opening of the competition and later at Government House. Once again, we discovered that the secondary school students were more outstanding than the undergraduate students. And that's puzzled us a little, but we think that it's probably down to the fact that the undergraduate students are very focused on their academic careers, and much more than the secondary school students are, and as a result are narrowed in their approach. We had probably about 80 or 90 people in the audience, but we had a much bigger audience than that, because this year, for the first time for several years, we were live streaming, and we set up a live streaming service through the website of the Eureka program, and that was viewed by 326 people around the country. The last time we tried that, there were 38 people viewed our live streaming effort, so to go from 38 to 326 was a very decent increase in audience. And those audience were all over New Zealand, and there were even some from overseas. We had a couple of glitches with the live streaming system, because there was a degree of miscommunication between Massey University and the live streaming people who were providing the service for us. But I have to say that the previous 5-6 years of experience of running this event meant that we got through those glitches very smoothly, and as far as the audience was concerned, and certainly as far as the audience watching on the live stream was concerned, there was absolutely no indication that there'd been any difficulties whatsoever, which is a great credit to the people from this club who have been leading the Eureka program event organisation over the last few years, that they were able to deal with these issues very smoothly. I'll keep pushing the wrong button. We were back in Government House this year. The new Governor-General, as you will recall, was just coming into her role at the time of the event last year. In fact, she hadn't yet come into the role, but it was in the interregnum. So we were in Parliament buildings, but this year we were back in Government House, and it was a fantastic black tie event, the awards dinner. I think everybody, a number of people from here were at that event and had a great time. The students themselves thought that was a fantastic capping of the day's activities. And there you can see them all dressed up in their glad rags and their bow ties and things, with the Governor-General and Sir David Gascoigne. And we were privileged to have the Prime Minister come along. He wasn't there in his official role as Prime Minister. His son Xavier was a contestant, won 2 scholarships, in fact, one from Ministry of Social Development and another one for the best presentation by a Pacifica student from the Ministry of Education. And so the Prime Minister and Mary English turned up both at the event itself and at the dinner afterwards. We were in the Grand Hall no, it's not called the Grand Hall, at Government House. I can't remember what the room's called, but we were in that wonderful room where there was plenty of room, the ballroom, that's right, and there were about 100 people there in total. So, 2 new awards were given out this year. We decided it was a really important time to start to recognise the role of teachers in the Eureka program. Teachers are very much the linchpin in terms of getting students engaged and involved. And the 2 teachers who won the inaugural Eureka Teachers Awards were Dr. Heather Meikle from Palmerston North Girls High School. She's had young students in the competition from the 2nd year onwards, and Hana Tapuni was one of the, you'll see shortly that she was one of the highly commended award winners. The other was Gillian MacDonald, who recently retired as the head of science at Scots College. Scots College is the only school which has had a contestant in the program every year since its inception, and has in fact had 2 winners. Evan Brenton Rule was an old boy of Scots College who won in year 2, and Andrew Tang won the competition last year. And we won't say anything about Rogers and my old school. So the highly commended Cassandra Spearin, who was arguing for the use of mushrooms to address issues of pollution of our waterways. George Mander gave a really interesting presentation about how to use psychology and measuring brain waves to see when someone had knowledge of something which they had subconscious, which could lead to them being associated or but most often cleared of a particular crime. He argued that there would have been a number of people who spent considerable periods of time in prison in New Zealand and overseas. If they'd gone through the program that he was talking about, they would have been cleared of that crime much earlier. And Hana Tapuni basically did a wonderful presentation about harnessing dung beetles in New Zealand to resolve some of our environmental woes. But the winner was from Samuel Marsden, Me Akari Kiwi, who, remind me, what was her presentation about, Russ? Solar power. Yeah, in fact, that was absolutely fascinating. She talked about applying a thin film of crystals to the back of windows in all the buildings in Wellington, and that would be able to generate electricity, which would make buildings, as a result of solar power, independent of the electricity network. So, it was a fantastic few days. We've got some ideas for the next months coming up. There was a great review process on the Saturday. The Alumni Forum is growing in strength, and they will, there's a number of plans coming up. One of the things we want to do is start a process by which we have the alumni debate issues of science and society, both live stream online and in public, in a public arena. And Federated Farmers, on hearing that idea, have put their hands up immediately to have them come to their conference and do a debate at their conference about issues of importance about science and society, particularly as it applies to agriculture. We think that there's a real opportunity there to showcase the alumni, to deal with some issues and to apply these young people's wit and intelligence to having a public debate about those issues. So thank you very much.